Alright, now that my mic's plugged in, let's start. So this is my quick little tutorial on how to try and get the world record or play optimally for Mutant Ops. So firstly, let's go down some of the basic stuff. Obviously, you can move any direction. Sprinting, that's a basic thing to know. You have your enemy lineup. I would say... Okay, mages aren't actually in the game yet, but they are in the shooting range. Like, they won't spawn naturally, firstly. These guys are, in terms of enemies, the only real threat I think would consider. They deal, by far, the most damage, and have a disjointed, semi-ranged hitbox of a sort of fire attack. So... but they will only start spawning about wave 30 to 31. So these, and I would say in terms of, other than spawners, the dragons are the most priority enemy to take care of, because they can kill you. Because I don't know if they have the exact highest damage numerically, but I do know that they are close. Like, they're either second highest damage or highest damage enemies, period. And it's their disjointed attack hitbox and their status of flying above everything else that makes them super annoying. In terms of guns, there is no gun that you can't use, period, other than the clicker. This starting pistol you get that fires at a gajillion clicks per second is useless. I would say go for anything else as fast as possible. Now you'll notice the number here when you're hovering over a gun that says upgrade power 10. In the shooting range, all the guns are upgrade power 10, but they can be anything from 1 to 10 in normal play. Upgrade power determines how much your gun's stats will increase. You can press tab by default. Controls to check your stats will increase by every time you upgrade it. So, as you can see, it went up by 10. And 10 again, 10 again, and that's how much and then it goes by 20. So it's got a formula to it. He explained it, but it's a complicated deal. In terms of gun, like I said, almost any gun works. But the best guns to actually go for are these three: the 6.66, the Hunter's BFF, and the LRB. And the Mini Blaster. Mini Blaster, where is... Yeah, these, you can tell because they're the only ones I put skins on. These are your ideal guns, and they all have slightly different values. So the Mini Blaster is probably the worst of the core four. So let's upgrade to full so you can get an idea of what each one's like at its peak. So you can see the Mini Blaster and LRB have the same ammo capacity. But... let's see, does it list reload? Does not list reload. Okay. But it's basically if you want something consistently faster, you go with the Mini Blaster. And if you want something that's a bit stronger, you'll go for the LRB. These are your kind of, let's say they're the A tier guns. If everything else is like B or C or D tier, and the clicker is F tier, these are your A tier guns. These two are your S tier guns. I would personally place the 6.66 in like normal S tier, but the Hunter's BFF in SS tier. It is, and this is complicated. To explain why the Hunter's BFF is so good, let's first compare what in normal gameplay would be the best gun, the automatic rifle. Now you can see it's got comparable damage to the Mini Blaster and LRB, but it's got more ammo and it fires way faster. So you think this would be the de facto best gun. And in a glitchless run, yes, it and the LRB would be the best guns. But there's one kind of main issue, and that is in a glitch run. So as you can see, almost all of these guns can one-shot the dragons starting out. Actually, let's get back to the dragons. But if we go to, let's go to wave 50, because that's what I would say if you're going for a world record, your first goal should be, is just getting to wave 50, because that's just a good starting, like, difficulty to me. As you can see, it takes, in practice, a full mini blaster to kill a dragon, which is pretty much your standard of difficult enemies. And you have a bit more ammo left with the automatic rifle, so that totally would be better, like I said, if you were going based on that. But it only takes 3 shots to at level 50 to kill one with Hunter's BFF. But so what? It takes longer to do so. So why? Why would you matter? Well, that's because of the main glitch trick right now, Kiwi bursting. As you can see, if you switch guns, you click twice rapidly, you can get 2 shots off rapidly. And the main way to do this is Q and E and double click. The one issue is every now and then, for some reason, the gun selection gets really messy and causes you to go 2 or 1 or like not the amount it should go. So sometimes you have to be a bit slower with it, which can see there. I pressed E once and it launched me all the way to the mini blaster. That's the issue. And the one thing with the Hunter's BFF is, like, obviously you have that way longer reload, but there's also a ton of time in the normal run, which we'll get to a bit later, where you're not doing anything, so the reload isn't nearly as bad as it seems. You're basically just going to be reloading anytime you're not shooting something. Now, the reason the S666 is a bit below, but not quite at the Hunter's BFF level, is because, obviously, it's a one-shot kill. Okay, I don't know why it's... Let's increase this to one of the more difficult waves that I often get to as the former and sort of not really world record holder as of making this. It's kind of complicated. Let's get a wave 100. So it is still like pretty much like it's a 2-shot still, right? But if we go to the Hunter's BFF, the second highest damage gun in the game, you can see it took us... let me try that actually again, because I wasn't sure. It should have been 7, but I didn't know if I... Okay, I didn't reload, so that's why. So it still takes a fair amount of shots. But here's the issue. If we go down to... This is about the range you're often going to be fighting dragons. You can see this is the issue. It's so if you see the damage, that's per bullet, and it fires 9 shots, or if its spread is 9. So that's, if you do the math there, that's about 36,000 damage, which is more than 3 times the Hunter's BFF, or maybe close to. I'm not quite sure because there's the extra 700 and whatever carryover damage. Point being, it's pretty close to 3 times. It's great long range, but it's not a reliable gun as a whole. Yes, you can get absurd one-shots on early at like close range, but the Hunter's BFF is more reliable, but both can be Kiwi bursted, so... In fact, the LRB can also be Kiwi bursted. It just doesn't have higher damage, and you're firing at the same rate with the Hunter's BFF with Kiwi bursting, so... it kind of doesn't matter. Now, like I said, there's the menu selection bug with Kiwi bursting where it occasionally fire, like there. I pressed E once, and it switched over 3 times. And point being that it's just like Kiwi bursting is a little unreliable. That's why you have the alternate Kiwi burst, which is if you press the number so your guns are selected from 1 to 5 with the number keys. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you press the number that the gun is in, you can do the Kiwi burst like that. And that's the alternate Kiwi burst. I'm still calling it a Kiwi burst because it's the global concept anywhere in your gun selection is Q and E or E and Q. But obviously you can't call it the 3 burst because you can do it with any of the numbers, so it's just easier to call it Kiwi burst. Whatever. The one issue is most of the keys aren't as easily accessible to do this trick, even though it doesn't have to deal with the randomly switching over side effect that occasionally happens, like that. But obviously not all of the number keys are as easily accessible, so typically you want your main gun to be in the 3rd slot. That's the easiest accessible gun. Next trick to know is that there's basically no bloom in this game for almost all of the guns, so you really have to go with where your cursor is, and you can hip fire pretty much just as accurately, but you'd get more recoil when hip firing. So what I do is I quick scope briefly. So I line my cursor up, and I know my sight is still registered on that, even though the animation doesn't show that. So I fire even before I can see that. So, and you do that, you can eliminate the recoil. Of course, that slows your movement down if you're aiming down a sight a bit. So in theory, you would be jumping and doing it at the same time, but it's very complicated and the animation can get wonky, so you might just have to take the slowdown every now and then. Sorry, I'm going to reposition myself in my chair. So that is the basics of like shooting in this game in terms of guns. Like I said, almost every other gun is passable, but you're really just stalling for the Hunter's BFF, LRB, Mini Blaster, Automatic Rifle, or 6.66. Any of these 5 are pretty viable for like a good chunk of time. Obviously, you want to go for upgrade power 10 of these, but going for like if you have a 5 or 6 or 7, you can use those once again while you're waiting for that 10 to spawn. And I personally would say upgrading your guns is more important than armor, but since armor isn't in the testing area right now, I'll have to go into an actual game and just hope I get lucky. So I'm actually going to stop the first half of the recording, and then I'm just going to edit this into 2 parts so I can figure out the timing a bit easier. Okay, let's firstly go into what you want to do with the early waves. So the first 3 waves, you can attack the spawners and destroy the spawners, and that will stop enemies from spawning and will cut off the wave sooner. The one issue is the longer the wave goes on, the worse loot spawns. So you want to kill the enemies as soon as they appear, for the most part. So you can ensure you have the best odds for getting loot. And you're doing this for the first 3 waves, not destroying the spawners intentionally. So you can give yourself more chances. Even though it gets lower and lower of getting good guns or guns in general as the round goes on, you're still getting more chances to, let's say, like pull the lever in a casino, if you think of it like that. What's also worth noting is every gun in this game has piercing. Pretty much. So you can see there, I can shoot through the enemies to get to the spawners. And I unintentionally destroyed all the spawners there, but you can kind of get the point of like what you're trying to do. So right now we're just waiting to get guns. Since I have an upgrade power 2 automatic rifle and the clicker, which is, no matter how far you upgrade it, just worthless. I'm really just stalling for better equipment. I want to give myself as many pulls on that casino lever as possible. There's a slight trick, but it's not the most useful. You can notice sometimes I two-shot and sometimes I one-shot enemies. That is because of a weird, unintended side effect of the developer, where if you clip through multiple segments of the model with your bullets, because everything is piercing, you're actually going to be hitting them twice. So if I hit them in the eye is its own separate little material, right, on the model. So that means I'm hitting both the eye model and the base enemy model. And I'm getting terrible luck, and this happens. You'll just get some terrible starting rounds. But you're going to be in the game so damn long, it really doesn't matter. Like, you can, as long as you can make it through about the first 60 or so waves, you're pretty fine. I might as well, while I'm waiting for something a bit better. Okay, there we go. Hunter's BFF, what level? 6? I'll use that for a bit. So, like I said, everything has a bit of piercing to it. The AK is the gun that I feel like needs a buff. If Little Papa's watching this. It just is outclassed by so much. Like, I feel like all of the guns but the Hunter's BFF need a slight buff or tweak to them. Like, I really like how the guns handle, but I don't like the damage and all that output. Like, I feel like the general DPS of... Because, like, yeah, for the first 50 waves, it seems broken that I can one-shot pretty much everything. But once you get to those, like, 100 waves and stuff, it gets real obnoxious that only the Hunter's BFF really does anything. So at this point, if you're really going for a world record, you can just slaughter everything you see on site. A big chunk of this game is training your enemies, figuring out the optimal loops around the map, and being able to snipe and tap the spawners. And then once you're done with that, here, I'll do a small scale demonstration. If I go over here, okay, there's no spawner, so it's only these guys left. So let's, and bam. Hunter's BFF, power 5. You know, I'll take that just because why not? Now you can see, if you can line up enemies like that to eliminate spawners, that's generally a good idea. I mean, you just save ammo, save a bit of reload. An important thing to think about with this game is that every second you're reloading, and every time you miss a shot, that's more time for more enemies to spawn. And that isn't that bad right now, especially while we're wanting better loot. But once you get to about wave 60, that can become life or death. That could be any second a dragon could spawn. I'm just getting terrible luck this round. So this is not a good tutorial segment. I would say, I kind of wish I had basic cheating powers just so I could show off stuff in this game a bit better, because the firing range is a little lacking right now. Just for the sake of the tutorial, I would be bored to death if I ever used cheats to play, like, the actual run. Because, for me, it's just not that difficult in general. That's not like a brag. I'm saying there's a bug in the spawning of the game, where after about wave 103 or so, I don't think the game knows what to do with spawning anymore. And not as many spawners are spawning, and not as many enemies are spawning out of the spawners as supposed to be. Like, it should be in unison, every spawner spawns an enemy at the same time, at whatever the rate is, 1 tick, 1 second, who knows. The dev does, obviously, but at wave, like I said, past 100, something just breaks, and sometimes enemies just don't spawn out of the pads, and sometimes there just aren't as many spawners as there supposed to be. I honestly wouldn't mind dying. This is a very terrible start. Like, this is not good. You outrun every enemy in this game, by the way, which is why I'm actually working on a couple enemy concepts and 3D models to try and make some better variety and just better enemies in general, because the enemies are the most lacking part of the game to me right now. Like, the core gameplay loop is fun, it's just so many of these enemies are, like, overlap so much. You can also start to see why I think the Hunter's BFF is just the best probably now, because you can see I'm just tapping spawners and I can eliminate them, which becomes kind of the main gameplay rhythm, is just tapping those spawners and then dealing with the enemies. Please, something. Okay. Okay. Then whatever, it doesn't matter. I was not getting guns and I was not getting armor. It's going to be like a 30-minute tutorial at this rate. So maybe I'll just cut to when I do get armor. Alright, so this is just a bit. I got the upgrade power 8 Hunter's BFF. There's nothing more to this. Continue to scroll on until I get armor. Man, I am very unlucky. Oh, hey, I got armor right now. Alright, so this is upgrade power 10 dark armor. I'm going to be honest, the armor balancing system is not great right now. So firstly, let's get a basic thing out of the way, and that is... Oh, that's perfect, but it's in the wrong spot. I really should have picked up another gun so I could still do it in 5. I'm not going for the world record, but that's just annoying. That I got it in one of the worst spots, and that means I would have to keep Kiwi bursting unless I find another 10, in which place I could move it. So yeah, armor takes up a slot, so that means you're going to be using all but, ideally you're going to have 4 slots of armor, and then your gun. Let's see. Oh, well, the P200 isn't bad starting out. It's one of those, I would say that's about a B tier gun. So I'll cover the different armor types. You'll know when you see them because they're color coded. So dark armor here, no matter how much you upgrade, you'll always have 25% damage increase, or negative damage resistance, but it's increased damage you take. But it gives you a ton of extra health, which I don't think mathematically covers, so you might as well not have it. But whatever. Because, I mean, if you think about it, yeah, I don't think it mathematically adds up to being that good. Yeah, you're only getting about a net you're getting about a net, like, if I'm using 100 damage as an example, you're only getting like about like a net 30 damage or so saved. If you're thinking about the math, but whatever. It's complicated. It's not that great. But it's the cheapest to upgrade, and it's built on health and, well, just health. It's about equal with regen to the magic armor. The magic armor is blue. It is the best, but it is also by far the most upgrade. It gives you a resistance bonus, as in it's a small percentage less damage you'll take. And it gives you not quite as much health as the dark armor, but close. And then there's military armor, which is brown, which gives you technically more resistance than the magic armor, but it doesn't give you any regen bonus and doesn't give you that much health. And its resistance increase is so minimal that you just go for the magic armor. It's both the dark armor and military armor are just filler for when you want to get the magic armor. Like I was doing the math, maxed out military armor and magic armor, only have about barely 1% resistance difference, but have about like a 50 health difference. So if you do the math of that, it's not much. That's 1 damage extra you're not taking, versus 65 more health you could have, about. If you're going for like an enemy and that's if your enemy's dealing 100 damage. Which, to be fair, this is the last mechanic I'll introduce. Even though I didn't get to see the magic armor this round. The enemies obviously gain health as the waves goes on, and so do the spawners. But they also gain damage equal to what wave you're on. So, plus their flat damage. So, all the enemies will deal their base damage stat plus 9 right now. And the other thing to consider is that there's a hidden difficulty to each wave. In other words, it ranges from easy, normal, hard, and hell, and that is a sort of modifier or effect to the enemy's health and damage they'll deal. The health they'll have and the damage they'll deal. So sometimes, like for example, like wave 31 could be more difficult than wave 32 if wave 31 got hell and 32 got easy, for example. So if suddenly you're not able to one-shot spawners, don't panic too much, because you don't know for sure if that's a permanent change yet or not. That might just be you got hard or hell. And it might go back to a tip like if you're using 100 BFF the way I do. But that's about the tutorial. I think it shouldn't be too hard to edit this down. So I'll end this here. Thank you for watching, and this is how you play Mutant Ops well.